let's move on to Group D. Obviously, so many talented teams in the competition, but few better than what we're seeing from the French. They're tipped to top the group. Denmark are favourites to finish second in the group, and then it's a battle for that third place. Who could potentially spring a surprise would be Tunisia and Australia. Let's begin with France, seeing as though we're going to spend more time talking about them. Certainly controversial. A lot of people talk about the chemistry, but there's no doubting the talent that this French roster has. It was difficult to leave players out of this group, JJ. I mean, they have so many players. There are a lot of disappointed faces I have seen around on social media when it comes to not getting into this French roster. I've got a feeling that when it comes to the big competition, France are going to really turn up. I have them going all the way to the final. I don't care about all the shit that's going on behind the scenes with off-the-field incidents and maybe, people wanting to be the main man. I believe this French group will come together in the big competition.
I can understand why people are very optimistic for France. And at the end of the day, we all know they have one of the most talented squads. They have some of the best, youth reserves, in the entire world, if not the best. There's certainly dynastic potential there. I've been saying it for years. But the fact of the matter is Didier Deschamps is a manager who thrives on familiarity, experience, sort of big tournament collective experience together. And that's something that he's not going to have now that he's had certain individuals ripped away from him. No Paul Pogba, no N'Golo Conte. That means restructuring the midfield. Yes, in terms of the attack, France have the potential to be absolutely deadly. When you can put guys like Mbappe, Benzema out on the pitch, have Giroud on the bench, yes, goals shouldn't be that much of an issue. But look at the defense a little more closely. How many natural right backs or left backs do you see in that squad? Assuming that the Deschamps goes with a back four, which is supposedly what he's going to try, you've suddenly got 4 centre backs playing, with 2 of them playing as fullbacks. I think that creates some immediate weaknesses, especially when you've seen that Benjamin Pavard, despite his World Cup heroics in 2018, in my opinion, is perhaps, at the very limit, a squad player at best at international level. I feel that there are some vulnerabilities that better sides will be able to pick out. And that's why this group and France's hopes of finishing top will depend on that game against Denmark for me.
I mean, I don't need to add too much to that. JJ is obviously well knowledgeable on France, living out there and drinking wine and having fancy cheese. There's never, ever been any kind of debate about the talent that France produces. France always produce tremendous talent. I will still go against Ian, and I do believe that if these guys can get together, they can definitely make a run, like Jay says, all the way to the final. If something doesn't happen to start in the dressing room or whatever it is, whether it's an ego thing or anything like that, they can. And I agree with JJ that they do have vulnerability, but France's approach, and this is probably going to be what Didier Deschamps' last tournament in charge of France, more than likely, for reading between the lines. He has to go best form of attack is attacking. They have to play all and out attacking football and really go for it. And with the talent that they have, they can play that. And Mbappe is at his best when he has a striker. So if it's Giroud or Benzema starting up front and Mbappe can play off that striker, they're a very dangerous side. They've got some youngsters that's been forced upon Deschamps to be picking. And I think they're not going to have that fear factor and they're going to surprise a lot of people, in my opinion.
I'm with you. If I look at my bracket, which I am right now, I have France playing against Poland in the round of 16, England in the quarterfinals, Belgium in the semifinal, and then, of course, Brazil, I have them in the final. So the run to the World Cup final certainly will not be an easy one, but there's just... when you win a competition with a young star in Mbappe and you see him witness what he has done individually since then, I believe he's a better player now, JJ, than he was back then. My personal opinion. I know he's obviously got this great aura around him and he wants to be the superstar at Paris Saint-Germain. But I just think that on the biggest stage, when it comes down to it, especially when it comes to playing for your country, players excel, players get better, and Mbappe will recognize that this is his stage where he has once already achieved and had success, that he can do it again. And the players around him, just absolutely fantastic. This squad of players is unreal. And then, of course, you think of what they have up top. You throw in a Karim Benzema now to this group. They've gotten better offensively than what they were when they won the World Cup. Don't see teams being able to stop France from scoring goals, and I certainly think that they'll do some damage. Enough from me. Let's move on to Denmark, who a lot of people are tipping to finish second in this group and potentially do some damage in the knockout stages. They have just such a top squad here. S27's been at me all the time about underestimating Denmark. Yeah, I do underestimate Denmark a little bit. JJ's not underestimating them at all. He thinks they are a real threat, and everybody should be worried, and they absolutely should.
I said they'd finish first. I put Denmark to finish first. Denmark are a great team. I think France will finish second, but Denmark are a great team. And for you Man United fans out there, you can thank Christian Eriksen because he's the best signing you guys have made in a long time at Manchester United. But they're a well-coached team, hungry, and they are the surprise package. They are the dark horses of this tournament for me. That's what I personally believe with Denmark. Great talent, great experience. Players are playing all across Europe in big leagues, and they're a team. They're really a team. If you say team, Denmark should be the one that everyone looks at out of everyone in this tournament. Denmark is really a team. And Christian Eriksen is going to be vital, as we always know. And I think that they'll finish top of the group and France will finish second.
Wow.
I mean, I don't disagree with with Nigel's sentiment. I think the thing about the Danish national team is that defense is extremely solid. There's a lot of familiarity within the players. If I had to really be picky, I'd say that they perhaps could be a little more prolific in attack in terms of having a really true recognized top goal scorer. I mean, I think you've got three guys who've got just over 10 goals, but nobody who really racks up the goals aside from Eriksen, and obviously Eriksen plays a bit further back in the midfield. And I think goalkeeper has now developed into a bit of a question mark for Denmark. I haven't been impressed by Kasper Schmeichel since he arrived in Ligue 1 with Nice. I think there are, given his importance to this Danish team, I think it's understandable that people might be wondering, if his best years are behind him. We'll see. We'll see if he brings it out for, the big international tournament. But this Danish side going to be very solid, very difficult to beat, and it really wouldn't surprise me to see them beat out France to top spot.
Well, just a reminder, if they don't finish top, they could potentially be facing Argentina in the round of 16. So that also tells you that the importance of France finishing top of this group, because they certainly don't want to play Argentina in the knockout stage. Oscar, Nigel out here printing money for us. Obviously, he's already put bets on you, Nigel.
We need to put a public service announcement out to people. Like, these are all predictions. Anything can happen from now to next week for these World Cup. We've seen it before where players could step on the train.
Should have put a down payment for a house after this World Cup. Thanks, Nigel. I mean, that's going to be a pretty small house. Like one of those Monopoly houses.
Don't be taking me too seriously, because anything can happen in this World Cup. Let's just say, because some players are vital for some nations, and if one or two injuries happen to key players, then it can be a complete different look. But for now, if everyone's fit, I'm still sticking to my guns.
I'm sensing you're nervous, Nigel, just a little bit here, that people want to put money on your predictions. I mean, you've been
sure
so great.
They're going to come back at me after this.
Yeah, but you've been telling us all how great you are in the Champions League predictions and how you're top of the table of the Champions League. Everybody out there, if you wanted to put money on the World Cup, listen to Nigel Rio Coker. His name is Nigel Rio Coker. You can find him on Instagram as well. If you want to put money on the World Cup.
Listen to what he says and then do the opposite.
Listen, all I'm saying is this: if people want to know about betting, just go the opposite to what Drake does, because whoever Drake backs, that team is going to lose. So just go with Drake, and you'll be all right.
Let's finish it up here. JJ, I'm coming to you on Tunisia, because there's a lot of French-based players, obviously, in this Tunisian team. Again, not many people talking about Tunisia. I'm a fan of what they do. I'm a fan of the way they play. I think they're dangerous, and I think they can cause some problems to Denmark and to France in this group. But what are your thoughts overall on Tunisia? Are they deep enough? Are they dangerous enough? Do they score enough goals? Are they strong enough defensively?
I don't ultimately think that they're strong enough to get out of this group, but could they make life difficult for France? Yeah, they certainly could. I mean, obviously there is that sort of competitive element, given, the links between the two countries. There's a huge Tunisian contingent in France. I really enjoyed watching them up against Brazil fairly recently at Parc des Princes. I think they bring a lot of passion, a lot of color, to international football. I think if, Denmark and France were to take their eye off the ball, Tunisia could run them closer than people expect. But I really wouldn't be confident putting my money on them advancing from this group. There is, talent when you're looking through some of the individuals. I actually think that Tunisia could be one of those teams that ultimately develops into being quite an impressive international team sort of in the next 10 years. When you look through and see the likes of Hannibal Mejri, you've got Talbi as well, who's playing very well for an underrated Lorient side at the moment. I think that, the best could be yet to come, for the Tunisians. But sure, on their day, they have players that can hurt some of these teams if they don't put them to bed. Guys like Wabi Kazri, who, inconsistent as he is, is a fine technical player on his day.
JJ, real quickly before we move on to Nigel, I know he wants to offer so much about this Tunisian team, but what about Hannibal Mejri? You just mentioned it. I haven't seen him play much. Decent player, good future?
Yeah, somebody who, is understandably highly rated. I mean, when you have somebody who's plucked from, these big French clubs like a Monaco before he's even played a match at professional level, there's always going to be a very high level of expectation, but he is finding his feet, in the English game at the moment. I know he's a United player, but he's on loan at Birmingham City. Bad choice of loanee club, but that's just my Villa roots talking. But no, he's definitely somebody who I think, could have even been somebody to play regularly for France at some point in the future, but Tunisia have snapped him up early, and I think him coming to the fore internationally so early in his career could definitely pay dividends further down the line.
Nigel, anything before we move on to Australia?
Just to say what JJ said, Tunisia, great individually, but collectively as a team, that's where they've always struggled. They always have some great individual players. You'll always find 2 or 3 superb talent, top class talent. But as a team collectively, they're still not quite there. They're working on that. And again, I think it's something for the future. That's what I have to say.
I think Tunisia will beat Australia in match day 2, Nigel. I like Tunisia. I've watched them 2 or 3 times now, and I think they're dangerous. I like Australia as well, and I think they've got a really good group. They're well coached. They have experience. Players are playing a lot of domestic football in the British Islands as well, in particular. What can they do at the World Cup, Nigel? Are they just there to take part, or can they really spring a surprise as to how this group actually plays out and maybe get a win?
I wouldn't say they can really spring a surprise, but what they will be is committed. Australians are always committed, whatever sports you're looking at, whether it's rugby or anything else, they definitely will be committed to the cause. And again, if you don't take them seriously, if you take them too lightly, then they probably could hurt you. But they're going to be a committed team, but I won't say that there will be much opportunity for them to cause that much upset in this group. I mean, you're looking at the 2 heavyweights, France and Denmark for me. Maybe Australia could probably get a sneaky win against Tunisia. I think that's going to be an interesting encounter, but you just feel that the other nations have way too much to Australia to be able to handle.
JJ, anything to offer?
I really think, I said it at the time, I'll say it again, I feel like Australia should feel lucky to be there and just try to play without pressure. I think this is a far cry from some of what we could consider the golden Australian generations in the past, when they had the likes of Cahill, Lucas Neal, Viduka, guys like that. I think even speaking to some Aussies, it's difficult for them to get too optimistic about their chances. But obviously, in terms of pride for both Tunisia and Australia, that game between those 2 will be absolutely huge.